Hey, I want to be ready too. Now what? Do I need a gun safe like this? Do I put all my food in buckets now? Do I move to the middle of nowhere? Do I need a prepping dog? The answer to that last question is yes. So, we get this question a lot, and it's asked in different formats. Sometimes we're asked specifically. I've had friends, family, people that I've met through the community ask me this question. We see this in Facebook groups and forums. The most common question, I think, and it's a question that everyone at some point deals with. Let me pull up my notes here. So, and the real question is, all right, I want to be prepared. Now, what do I do? And you start looking at YouTube videos. Man, there's a lot of information out there. It's very difficult to see what to do. How much money do I need to spend? What should I buy? What's really important? You ask 10 different people, you get 10 different answers. And the sad part is it's really easy to spend a lot of money um, incorrectly. It's easy to spend a lot of money and not really make any progress. Conversely, you can spend much less money and make a lot more progress. So it is important to do this correctly. So number one, you got to figure out where you are and where you want to be. Okay. So and what that means is what scenarios are you trying to prepare for? Now we have courses and videos, and we go into more detail on our Patreon page teaching this. But um, what am I preparing for? And really, what that takes is a risk assessment, a proper risk assessment. But just starting out, hey, what am I worried about? Am I worried about economic collapse? Am I worried about like a slow degradation of economic collapse? Am I worried about EMPs, nukes, all that kind of stuff? I would start there. You have a general idea of what you're doing, right? Now, think about this as being like in an airplane. I start with a 50,000 foot view, and the further along I go, the closer I get. So now a 30,000, 20,000, 10,000 foot view, or think of it like a digital image, low resolution versus high resolution. The further along you go, the higher resolution that picture is going to get, and that's okay. And your goals may change, so that's fine. Um, so you'll start with initially, what am I concerned about? Eventually, sometime in the beginning, you want to do that risk assessment because there's actually a process where you're weighing out the likelihood versus the severity. It's very important. A lot of people really get caught up in the severity. You see it with the EMP stuff. It's really popular. It's really sexy. Is it the most likely? Well, depends on who you ask. And so there's a matrix that you can use that'll spit you out a number, and it'll tell you, hey, this is exactly um, how you should be risk ranking, right? So, but initially, this is where I want to be. Now, reality is, if you follow our process, for the most part, regardless of what you're preparing for, everything's going to be well rounded, and you're prepping and being prepared should mean that you're prepared for other things too, okay? You want to be a jack of all trades, right? So they got that saying, a jack of all trades is a master of none. A jack of all trades and a master of none is better than a master of one. So having someone that's extremely specialized in one area but lacking in others is not what it means to be prepared. And you see this whether it's people that are really into guns, really into storing food, really into medical. It's in a group setting. It's not necessarily bad to have some of those specialists, right? Especially like in medical, you need someone with a high level of knowledge. But as an individual trying to be prepared, you should be well balanced. So if you have a bunch of guns and ammo and you have no food, no medical, that's a problem. If you have food and medical and you have no way of defending yourself, that's also a problem. So be jack of all trades. Your preps should roll into other scenarios, right? So we saw this with COVID initially. People were prepared for one particular scenario, and then COVID came, and they were not prepared to bug in, which is kind of crazy, right? The other thing too is baby steps. Baby step. I see again. This is another big one. People get on the groups. Man, it's so overwhelming. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to do this, and it can lead to two main issues that I see a lot. One, discouragement, and people give up. And then two, um, people just spend too much money. And maybe they have it, and maybe they don't, and they go into debt. But people just spend a bunch of money, and they really don't even know where they're going yet. Right? We've all seen this, right? We have a buddy, let's say, that gets into a new hobby or sport, and they just go out and they just spend all the money, the nicest equipment, the best gear. But reality is, if you're brand new at it, like if you're playing golf and you go buy an extremely expensive set of golf clubs, it's not going to do any good because you don't know what you're doing, right? If you're gonna, same thing, shooting. Um, Wait until you get some proficiency before you spend the high dollar money on the precision rifle and optics or whatever, photography, all that kind of stuff, right? So we've all seen this in all aspects of life. So baby steps. Start small. Um, you just want to get the ball rolling in a certain direction. As you do this, you will learn and you will change your plans a little bit. Um, so don't worry about it. Expect that to happen. Okay. The initial plans or the initial steps for basically any prepper is going to be more or less the same anyway. So initially, you don't have to be perfect in what you're doing. Just small baby steps. The other thing too is cover all your bases first. So, like I mentioned, being a jack of all trades, don't put all your money into food, and then so I'm going to get to expert level food, and all right, I have 2 years worth of food, I have 10 years worth of food, whatever, and then all right, let me go get all my professional level tactical gear. No, you cover all your bases, a little bit of defense, a little bit of medical, a little bit of food, and in these other videos that we have out, and we'll post more, and our Patreon classes and whatnot. We talk about concentric circles and all that, but I'm making sure I have all my bases covered before I move on to the next level, basically. Play the long game. Okay, so this is a marathon, not a sprint, and for a lot of people, this becomes a lifestyle. So don't get so caught up in everything's falling apart. It's too late to prep, and I don't know if I'm ever gonna get this in time. You gotta play the long game. No, none of us know what's gonna happen in the future. Take your baby steps. Play the long game. This is why I said in the beginning, you need to know where you're at and where you want to be. So in your head, you should have an idea of what you wanted, what your top level prepping, and it changed. It's changed for us. When I first started, I had an idea of what my goal was, and it has changed. Part of it because as I did this, I've learned things, and part of it too is just because the world changes, right? So that's okay. Expect that to happen. And so that goes to my last point. Don't be afraid to change your plans. You may go down this journey and realize that your initial expectations are completely wrong, or maybe they weren't. But don't be afraid to change your plans. Don't be afraid to change your assessment. We don't know what the future is going to hold, right? So we're all doing this so we can be a little bit more self-sufficient, a little bit more prepared. All right, so that's all I got for today. Just want to make a brief video. If you're starting out, if you're new, these are some of the initial steps you could take. Stay safe, stay prepared.